Hello, everyone. My name is Dr. Yonit Arthur. I'm an audiologist and coach. You're on the Steady Coach, and I am so excited to welcome Sam Miller, the incredible Sam Miller, back to have a really important conversation about how to solve the entire problem of all mind-body conditions in one conversation.
Well, no pressure there. Well, what we're going to do is at least perhaps look at it from a slightly wider perspective, shall we say, which I think is
Yes.
important and necessary. And you and I are in total accord about the necessity for this, because obviously at the moment it really is a one size fits all. And it's such a gamut of experience from people just experiencing, say, minor, although very uncomfortable, single issue presentation like back pain or something like that, to people with full spectrum, full blown multi system presentations of mind body conditions. And
Yes.
you and I both posit and think it's necessary that we have to approach these things in different ways.
Yes.
There's a broad overview, but it's very important to understand that the tools might differ and be applied in a more nuanced
Yes.
perspective. Yeah.
But despite using different terminology, we agree on the root of it all and we agree on what needs to be
Absolutely.
done.
Yeah.
I love how, so everyone should know this is our third attempt at recording this conversation. I love how you started this one very professionally, Sam. It's because
As
we've said
opposed
it.
to the last two.
The last
I'm
two, we were very,
broken.
yes. In
Put into
fact, we
sensible mode.
recorded an entire almost 2 hour long conversation for all of you guys about a week ago, and it broke Google Cloud, and so it didn't end up
Either that or you've
surviving.
got to press a button. We'll go for the former. Yeah.
I if we had to rely on me remembering to press buttons, there would be so many other things going wrong. So
If it was me, anyone who knows me, I mean, well, look at me. I'm stuck in a different generation and anyway, I don't get on well with technology. But let's hope. Well, we like to think that these things all happen for a reason, because this is all about allowing and accepting what is to be there.
yes, yes, yes.
And perhaps there's something we missed. Perhaps there was a flavor that was perhaps off or misaligned, or who knows. But here we are again,
I love the
having another
optimism
run
there.
at it.
We're going to take another run. And this one, again, if you're watching this, it means we succeeded. So you can celebrate with us. And now I'm pulling out my notes because,
Mm,
unlike some of my other conversations, and maybe many of the conversations Sam and I have together, we're friends, we talk a lot. I actually thought in advance about how we want to structure this conversation so we really
okay.
get the major points across, right, Sam? We did
Yeah.
this, as
Yes.
you know, in round one. Okay. So if it's okay, I'm going to kick us off with my
Yeah.
first
Yeah. Cool.
question.
Go for it.
Okay. Okay. So, Sam, you and I work with many people whose symptoms are debilitating and very severe.
Mm-hmm.
And we've discussed how, for many of our clients, it takes more than just the standard method of addressing neural circuit symptoms for people to get better. So, in other words, the standard approach generally would include things like education, addressing fear of symptoms, say through graded exposure or somatic tracking, reframing symptoms. Those are incredibly good tools, very useful, but our clients seem to need a little bit more than that.
Yes.
And we've proposed together
Mm-hmm.
that this reflects that there are different severity stages. So, like stages of an illness, of TMS, mind body issues, neural circuit syndrome,
Mm.
all the same thing. So, we are here to discuss first, what do you think constitutes stages 1 through 4? Like, what is involved in each
Yeah.
stage of this syndrome, and what works to help someone in each of
Mm-hmm.
these stages? And I think this will help people understand why, again,
Mm.
if they're dealing with a lot of the symptoms you and I see and have been dealing with them for a long time, or they're widespread symptoms, why stuff like just ignoring your symptoms and going back to your life is not actually going to get you there.
No. And, bear in mind, this is a work in progress, but it's from my own anecdotal experience, my own recovery journey, people I work with, and just sort of observing that, you can't apply the same model to everything. Of course, it's the same territory, but the map must be slightly different and bespoke to each person, because the causes for presentation will be different to each individual. And, we're talking about these stages, and this is a broad spectrum to try and understand perhaps a framework that can be loosely fitted over everything. But talk about it in stages of advancement, because so often you and I meet people who will think this is their first symptom, and as you start to have conversations with them, it's like, oh, and then I had this and this, and I developed this intolerance to that, and blah blah blah, and they'll be going right back to when they were teenagers quite often, and then often to the root of where this sort of schism with themselves occurred, and therefore the problem began. So I've sort of sketched out really what I would think. You and I are pretty much in concert about this.
Yes. And I'm going to interrupt you
at
times during this conversation, as I did the first one. So that folks, if Sam and I have different ways of explaining exactly the same concept. So at times I'm going to hear her explaining a concept and I may interrupt her and explain how I generally communicate the concept. And then we'll explain how we're saying the same thing.
Yes, because I think it's important you realize we're in accord and we're not saying two different things, because you happen to resonate with myself and we're not saying different things, because both of us have people say, well, Sam says this and Yonit says that. We're saying the same thing, just different language, but it's the same menu always.
That's right. Exactly.
But just we might couch it in different terms and perhaps use different reference points, but it is still the same schema on the whole. Okay. So if we were to look at mind-body conditions in a sort of 4-stage advancement, the way I would see it would be this, and certainly with people I've worked with, if we have stage 1, would be when people first become subtly dysregulated. Symptoms will be mild and episodic, sort of fluttering guts. You might suddenly start developing gluten intolerance, or brief moments of dizziness, okay? Perhaps headaches intermittently, bit of fatigue, tension, joint pain, all of which are usually dismissed as stress. And people think, oh, I've just done too much, this, that, and the other. And there will probably be some transient stress in their life, okay? This is where, the full self is active. And by full self, I don't know how you would say, but it's the person we think we should be, okay? The person we've had to become during our lives to get our needs met. So this is the persona, the mask we wear, if you like. So for a lot of people, it means perhaps not feeling our emotions. It perhaps means we have to be perfect. It means we have to say yes when we mean no, and so on and so forth. Achievers, doing jobs perhaps that aren't actually a match for our true selves, but felt like the right thing to do at some point because we were acculturated to believe that. We grew up in a family that actually rewarded us for behaving in a way that wasn't natural innately to us, but it did get our needs met in a basic level. And so we developed this false self. And parts of our true self had to be split off and put in what we call the shadows. So they became they came out of view in the unconscious, but they're still operating. And this is also due to a lot of people for obvious trauma, but also not. Because I just want to state here, you and I would both agree on this, that trauma constitutes much more than people would perhaps realize. Simply not being able to express yourself, genuinely being emotionally invalidated, not being permitted to be yourself in a way that feels safe as a child would constitute trauma, because a charge will still be left in your body, in your psyche, that hasn't been able to really catch up. And the important thing of that is that the emotions we weren't able to feel at any point in our life, if we don't discharge them to completion, they get stuck in the system and they dysregulate us. And dysregulation is a word we hear a lot of. And the number one dysregulating mechanism in the universe is repression, and repression of emotions, because emotions are our life force, energy in motion, emotion, and they're still there, robbing us of the components that really are so important. So this is setting up this pattern here. We're also
let me interrupt you here, because let me just kind of explain in my terms what you just said, because I think, again, I want all of you to see we're saying the same thing, even if we're using a different description. So people listening to this may be familiar with how I talk about this as the stress bucket. And I talk about how, you have stuff going on on the outside, but that you also have patterns of responding to those outside things in a particular way that increases stress. And again, people misunderstand what I mean by stress. I'm going to repeat what I just said in a different way. I don't mean, oh, scary bad things happen to you, although scary bad things certainly could have happened to you, and that is certainly a contributor. But the what ends up filling up your bucket, so to speak, is not just what happens, but also long-standing patterns in how you understand, interpret, and react to that stress. And when you learn earlier in life, at some point, for whatever reason, you may have built beliefs around this, or you may have been directly told, I'm not allowed to feel a certain way, or I'm not allowed to be a certain way. You have automatic strategies that you use to avoid feeling certain emotions, needs, or other material. Or certain drives that you have, certain natural drives that you had. So emotions, needs, and drives are kind of summarizing it. So when you have those strategies in place, you're not only not able to access all the data that you need to make decisions that reflect how you really feel about things, you're also spending energy trying to keep those things out of your awareness. And so that increases the stress load, the allostatic load, the stress bucket level over and over in small drops or deluges, it doesn't matter, over time, filling it up. And so when we get to the point where someone has, as you're talking about stage 1, it means the bucket's already full. The bucket's already full. There are already things that have accumulated in time, and they may not be things that you would identify as traumatic. They're often just longstanding patterns, as you said, of repressing or not being able to access material that you need to make good decisions and or to live authentically.
Absolutely. And that's the conflict that's going on under our radar. It's who we truly are being in conflict with who we've had to be. And it's the things we couldn't feel and now coming up to be felt. Everything we couldn't feel because it wasn't safe, because it wasn't acceptable, because it wasn't okay to be vulnerable, to be us, whatever, has gone into that stress bucket. The shadow, as Jung would call it, it's the same thing. It's a repository of stuff that's sort of waiting to be completed. And that can be huge trauma. It can, just as you say, simply be a filling up, an accumulation bit by bit of stuff that hasn't, we'll do that later, we'll do that later, we'll feel that later, we'll be that later. But after a while, we've chopped that off. We no longer know that it's there. And we've actually lost connection to, as you say, our guidance, our authentic guidance, because at some point it wasn't safe to feel angry, sad, fearful. So we just put it behind a curtain. And those things we need, those are our guides. Those are our instinctual guides. They know who we truly are, but we no longer know they're there. And this is why repressed emotions are such a key part in understanding, not the emotions that you can see. You have emotions, but they're secondary emotions. They're not the real ones. And secondary emotions are a mental interpretation. We're talking about the ones in the body. And these are the ones that are being held in the stress bucket. And as you say, it takes so many resources to not just to keep them down there, but also they're robbing us of selection. So we want them back. We want them back because, one, they're ours, and we want to regulate our nervous system, which is the best way to regulate, is to have your emotions. But we don't want to be wasting energy repressing stuff, and we want to be ourselves. So this is the crux. As you say, this is the first point we start to realize the bucket's full. Okay, storage full. And we're running all these patterns that we had to adapt to when we were younger, which were brilliant adaptations. And you and I are both in agreement, there's nothing broken. The brain doesn't make mistakes. There are no prediction errors. In the truest sense, they might be
in a neurological sense. There are.
Exactly. Yes.
Right.
So
yes.
There is danger in the system, but the danger is being us. That's the problem. So if you learnt you can't be imperfect, angry, vulnerable, this, that, and the other, you developed a persona that said we must be whatever is acceptable to people who we rely upon. Brilliant adaptation. Now, however, we don't need it, which is why, in its brilliance, the system is saying, let's empty that bucket now and get to who you are. But the who we think we are, it doesn't recognize it, and it will kick back. And this is the threshold where symptoms will appear, and we'll kind of talk some more about that in a minute. But we're still
just 1 second.
Yeah.
I'm going to interrupt you again. Please,
Yeah.
thank you. And everyone else who's listening to this is like, wow, Yonit's being really rude. I promise Sam and I talked about this ahead of time,
so
that I would
rude.
interrupt you.
I cannot stand
I'm
her.
so rude. I'm just being my true self, Sam. This is what
I'm much ruder than you. You're so much more like me. I'm a dreadful human being, as you know.
and wickedly funny for those of you who don't know. But what I wanted to come back to was what we were just saying about the prediction error. So I just want to clarify this for people.
Yeah.
Sam and I are in complete agreement about this. So you're going to hear me say your brain's making a mistake, your brain's making a prediction error. Yes, in a neurological way, or from the perspective of like how your brain is interpreting sense information, it's making an error. That's why you're dizzy again. And if you're dizzy, or if you're having some other symptom, that's why you're having the other symptom. That's an error of sensory interpretation. What we're saying, and what we completely agree on, is you are not making an error of threat assessment. Your brain is following the mind's assessment of threat. And while Sam and I may explain what the threat is a little bit differently, Sam, you're talking about true self. I'm talking about stress bucket. Again, these are all related concepts.
It's the same thing. It's the stuff over there that's behind the curtain. And it's now trying to come to consciousness. And this part's going, no way, that's the danger. And actually,
the assessment is correct.
That we are our own true self is actually dangerous to who we had to become. The costume we had to wear is now threatened by the fact that we're taking it off. And it's the same thing. So there is the brain is sensing danger. It's just not out there. That's the prediction error. It's not the bad back. It's not the thing that it's coming from the psyche. It's coming from the stress bucket, because it sees it as foreign and threatening, because once when you were, 5, 15, 20, it was dangerous to be you. It was dangerous to feel the feelings. It was dangerous to naturally be in train with yourself. If you were bullied and you had to suck it up, ignore it, push through. If you had to not cry the tears because you'd been mocked, it was considered dangerous to be you. These things are now coming up to be felt. They're coming into consciousness, and the automatic version of you that is just happening, and is basically your brain's programming, is going, oh my God, danger, danger, danger.
And it's accurate. And that's where you and I agree. It's not an error that this is happening.
No,
there's an accurate assessment of threat, from how you're explaining it, from the true self to the false self, the false self you've had to become, or the way that I explain it, from all this material that's existed in your stress bucket and you have not been able to, for whatever reason, without blame or shame, folks, without blame or shame.
Oh God, no.
None of this is your fault. But for whatever reason, you have not been able to address that material. And so that material is giving you an appropriate signal that you are actually being threatened. And that's what is triggering some of this prediction error from a sensory perspective.
And that's the key thing, because it's who it thinks you are. You hear often the brain is just trying to protect you. True, not true. The brain is trying to protect who it thinks you are. And it thinks that it's this version of yourself that doesn't feel authentic, that doesn't do her stuff, that is always nice, is always productive, does the job that is respectable, is the sexuality that might be the one that was chosen for them by their culture. That's who it's protecting. Okay, that's why the alarms are going off, because the real you is a threat in the brain's interpretation. But we reprogram it. How? By doing everything we're talking about here. So as you start to allow the material to come into consciousness as it's being delivered, it's already here. It's called a symptom. You allow it in all the ways you and I both talk about. That updates the program, and naturally the brain starts to see the foreign thing as its own. And we are now, that starts to update the ego. So it's no longer seen as a danger, this incoming material. It doesn't have to have this physiological sort of histamine allergic response to what it sees as a foreign body, because it's just a part of us that it forgot about.
Yeah.
So
that's a lovely way of explaining it. Again, that's a lovely way of explaining it. So again, I hope that is making sense to all of you. Again, if you're used to the way I explain it, hopefully we've done a good job thus far of explaining that we're saying the same thing, just
Yeah.
using different terminology. Okay, so I totally derailed us. So tell us more about stage
No,
one.
I was just saying, but so when we're in the stage one and we're having these intermittent presentations of this, that, and the other, and blah, 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 the full self is active. You know, it has probably been active for decades, etc. It's been a coping mechanism. We are a coping mechanism who we've become to this point. And this is everybody in the world, but just ours has become a little bit too far from who we are.
Copy.
And now too copy, and the bucket is full. It's just like, no, storage full. We need to discharge some of this. So it's now saying it's time. So we'll be running at this point patterns of performance, control, niceness, and anything to really avoid vulnerability or to into any way put us in contradiction with what we once weren't able to be. And our whole life is really formulated around this. But this is the point at which the body is beginning to protest this emotional split. And it's starting to be expressed through our symptoms because we weren't able to acknowledge the emotions at the bottom. And it's so brilliant, your system. It's always trying to bring you back into balance. It's always trying to bring you back into balance, directed by who you truly are. And as a coherence and alignment. And the self, as we would call it, the true part of you that can see the conscious and the unconscious, who we think we are and who we are, which is sort of both aspects, is now saying, right, we need to unload this stuff into awareness to now bring us up to date. And because we are allergic to aspects of ourselves that we had to split off, what the brilliant system does is it tries to, like a Trojan horse, get our attention with symptoms. And those symptoms are different for lots of people because it will be pertinent to your culture, your history, this, that, and the other. And everyone has their Achilles heel. And this is really interesting as you see the condition advance as well. And dizziness, you know, you and I are very clear on this, quite often is the final, just pay attention. We'll come to that a bit more. But so this is when we are noticing symptoms. And I would always say for symptoms, read repressed emotion. Emotion we couldn't feel is always behind it.
And I always say repressed material, because I think it's more than just emotions.
Yeah. It is. Well, it is. But at the bottom, but we had to repress the material normally because of emotion. So that's the kind of the fuel that's keeping going. So yeah, again, and Jung would say repressed material because it's our desires, it's traits of character, needs, all of that,
our drives.
Yeah.
Yes.
But they will have been. They are sort of funded by emotion. So yes, we'll call it repressed material, and I will definitely say that as well. So at this point, if we're thinking about the our neurological system, it's still flexible. We're talking about neuroplasticity, which everyone hears about. Our neurocircuits are still flexible. They haven't hardwired into patterns yet. These are nascent things happening, and they haven't what's been called entrenched. When they become sort of like, we use it all the time and it becomes hardwired. There's actually nothing hardwired, but that's just a shorthand for it. So like driving a car, riding a bicycle, walking, that's sort of hardwired in that sense because we use it a lot. So the ability to overcome things at this stage is very strong. We have, the prefrontal cortex can override things at this point, tell you you're safe, allow yourself to be with things in a way that it doesn't seem too challenging. And this is where it's very important here, because a lot of these cognitive reassurance methods that we see out there, they're not suitable for later stage. Well, they're not really suitable for anything, to be honest, beyond really very early stages, because they can reduce fear, which means you can then do more of the allowing and being with the thing. But as we go on, our ability to override our cortical function that diminishes. So a lot of people feel very bad that they can't do it, but there's neurological reasons for this.
They're gritting their teeth and they're saying things like, okay, I'm saying the affirmations, I'm safe, and they don't feel safe at all. But you're saying in stage one, that actually might be helpful.
It will be helpful because you can understand the anatomy of what's going on here, and you can, of course, you can't talk to your emotions in that sense, but you can talk to the secondary emotions. You can effectively, because it's a mental thing, so you can effectively override the fear of the fear at this point a little bit, which gives you a little bit more neutrality to be able to do the somatic tracking,
Yeah.
to be able to do the exposures we need to do some basic reframing of things as safe, and it will work. So this is kind of pretty much Dr. Sarno's method, you know. But a key thing he missed, and he was absolutely brilliant in so many ways because he was one of the first people to actually acknowledge these conditions might not be structural, but due to repressed material. And particularly notably, he would say anger. But it's not enough to have the insight to the anger. You then have to feel it in the body, because this is the language. You know, you can't talk to your bodily functions. I can't tell my liver to behave in a certain way. I can't tell my emotions to dial down and be less fearful, etc. It just doesn't work like that, because the
And
language of the
also,
is
and not
sensation.
only not only that, anger is often secondary to something else. Anger is often secondary to deeply held beliefs that are
Yeah.
also, when you deconstruct them, you realize they're protecting you from something else. So not that rage it can't be the primary thing, but many times what I see, Sam, in my work is
Yeah.
people will talk about they'll finally get in touch with their anger, and it's really more resentment than it is anger. And when someone's
Yeah.
feeling resentment, that tells me more about them having a belief system that's suppressing some other material that needs to come out. So,
Yes, because it might just be a secondary anger masquerading as a
correct,
primary anger in that respect. So,
correct. Yeah,
that's the thing. And I for me, certainly I found that fear is one of the biggest
yeah,
in that
yeah,
respect. You kind of go through and you cycle through, and this, that, and the other, and you have mixtures, you have fear and anger, fanger, sanga, whatever it
yeah.
might be. It doesn't really matter in that sense. It's just stuff you weren't able to feel that's now coming up. You felt, and it's been directing your life in the wrong direction. And actually, the brilliantness of yourself, of your psyche, is trying to bring you back to yourself, so you don't waste your life being her, and you can start being you again and getting
Yes.
things up to date. So, these these basic things of cognitive reframing and what have you, and Sarno and some of the
Graded
PRT and stuff,
exposure.
it,
Yep,
it is very good for these early presentations, due to,
correct.
as we say, like transient stress and this, that, and the other, to kind of just uh, be okay with these messages coming from the limbic system and what have you. And you know, this is also the point at which milder symptoms are beginning to disrupt homeostasis a bit more. Okay, so we're starting to get shallow breathing, as I say, gut issues, tension, bit of insomnia. Our interoception starts to become lowered, and by that, we don't really detect what's going on inside of us in the same way. So you've got interoception, you've got neuroception generally, but we've kind of lost really the ability to sort of read the room outside and inside, the interoceptive room. And we should be doing that. There should be signals going both way, telling us what's
Can
happening.
I point out that hypochondria is the same thing, that it may look like you're really good at interoception and that it's actually not at all. You're paying attention to irrelevant signals rather than the
Yes.
ones that
Oh,
are
yes,
actually.
yes, yes, yes.
So,
No, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, absolutely, 100%. Because that's hypochondria is a mental, it's a meaning making of things. It's actually not real, okay? Because hypochondria might be saying, oh, my, I've got sort of palpitations, therefore I've got a heart problem. No, that's a mental interpretation. You've actually got that because you're dysregulated, because you've got emotional material coming up. The the key giveaway is that actually you need to get out of the way, and the body will do its own thing. You will re-regulate. All of these things that are extremely unpleasant aren't actually dangerous. Um,
So, sorry, I don't want to derail us too much, but I'm smiling because you've been using the word dysregulation, and I know it's a word you and I detest because it's being
mhm,
used as a marketing term a lot nowadays.
yeah,
So what you're saying is, and I completely agree with you, but I want to make sure other people hear me say this, you don't have to do anything to re-regulate your nervous system. It's not a doing problem, it's a being problem. I've been saying that this whole week.
exactly.
And if you can truly let yourself be in the purest form, whatever that means, which again we're going to be
Yeah,
discussing,
yeah,
then your body will re-regulate itself. That is what it is designed to do.
It's a blueprint. It's like an elastic band. You let it go, it will just do it. Okay,
Yes.
it's all running
Yes.
downhill.
Yes.
You know, the process of dysregulation is unpleasant. It's because we've repressed half of what is important to regulate a nervous system. You don't deal with symptoms, you deal with the cause of symptoms, and you understand why the symptoms arose in the first place. That's the way to switch them off. When we start to feel and allow back in that which was repressed and is now being fronted by these symptoms, there is no need for the symptoms. The regulatory factor, the repressed material comes back in, and regulation slowly over months, sometimes a couple of years, will be reinstated just naturally. No need to tap, breathe, do this, blah, 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 special duck, nothing. It will just happen because we can't mimic it. We can't make it happen from the outside. It will happen. And the only way to prove it's safe, because this alarm is on, is to prove it by being okay with ourselves. Because if we are okay with ourselves, then there is no danger, because it's being ourselves has been considered dangerous. That's the big problem.
Yeah. And we you may be using breathing or tapping. We're not necessarily anti any of those things. You just need to know what you're doing it for. It may be a tool.
You can use them as a support to be able to allow.
That's right.
Okay? Yep. But they are never the solution, because you have to feel them. You have to feel them, because otherwise what you actually want to do, because people talk about calming the nervous system, what we actually want to do is activate the nervous system to full throttle so it switches off. You don't do it in one hit. You don't mimic it. You don't fake it. You don't force it. By just being there, you're naturally allowing this to happen by small micro discharges of survival energy, of repressed emotion, of repressed material to come into consciousness and be felt. And that's naturally re-regulating through activation. It's finishing what we couldn't, what once was too much or was interrupted. So
and I want to just add here that also, again, from the way that I explain things, I want people to hear. From my perspective, that's providing updates. So it's not just, we're discharging material into the ether, which some of you really, that may resonate with you. And for others of you, you're like, what does that mean? Think of it this way. If that way of understanding this concept doesn't resonate with you, think of it this way. For these various reasons, you've developed beliefs and defenses that keep some of this material out of your awareness, meaning it increases your response to stress. It amplifies stress a lot more than it should. And when you actually feel those deeply held things, every time you do that, you're telling your brain, hey, I know you thought that was dangerous, but look, here I am. Here I am experiencing that thing. You're updating the program, and you're also, so in two ways, you're updating the program so the mind, however we want to explain this, is learning, actually, okay, not dangerous. Sorry. Oh, gotta update that. That's not dangerous. But also, you're getting access to data that you've been missing out on that you need to live a life. Guidance. Yes.
Not only do you do that, so you update the program, the algorithm. So neuroplasticity, you basically rewire your brain properly, not with some bullshitty kind of look the other way, change your thought stuff. You'll go back to these are changes that are lasting, because the charge that's repressed is now coming into consciousness to be used as it should back into dynamic flow. And the program, which is basically this ego program, which is let's talk about the brain as the computer in that respect, and the mind as the programmer, the one that's the allower, is saying, well, fine, the ego doesn't care. It just will give you what you tell it. If you keep being okay with not being okay repeatedly enough, it'll go, it's okay. And it will update that thing will become us. And it's what's called the default mode, which is our point of self-reference, will update. I am now somebody who does say no. I am now somebody who does have feelings. I am now somebody who does ... And it goes, fine, update, ding, 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 ding. The whole program gets updated. You've rewired your brain. You've just re-regulated your nervous system a little bit more. You've got some energy back in the system. You stop wasting energy repressing stuff. Win, win, win all round. And guess what? You're more you. And it's like, wow, gosh, I feel angry when people tell me to do things that are really outrageous. I didn't know that. And you just say, okay, no. Suddenly you have the information, the guidance.
Yes.
So
exactly.
You're default mode network will begin really at this point when we haven't done this, we'll start really at this early stage, start identifying round excuses. So as to still keep this debate. Oh, I'm just busy. I'm just really tired. It's really stressful. There's a lot going on with my kids. Blah, 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 because it's still trying to keep you away from that. And effectively, it's still rejecting. And all is these sort of the stress that's coming up. You're beginning to, the alarms are building here. The bucket is full, storage full, light is going off. The system at this point is still highly plastic, by that malleable, changeable. And, responsive, if we allow these truths, these emotional truths, to come back in and welcome very gently and early, if we by allowing, by somatically tracking, by identifying the emotions, the repressed material that perhaps we didn't realize were us, PRT, EAET, emotional awareness expression technique, are really sufficient at this stage.
Yes.
It's enough. It's enough to do that. And that is stage one, I would say. So you can knock it on the head there, but of course, this is not the majority of people. Certainly, the majority, and of course, as a result, as you point out, you will have changed your life. You will start to be a more authentic version of you, because you can't just do this and then go back to the old you. You won't want to be the old you, by the way, because you've now got the information. You're just going, oh my God, I can't believe I used to do that. No, it's like saying, I really hate Brussels sprouts my whole life. And then suddenly thinking, God, no, I actually really like them, because you're just running on an old program. You've got to remember that the ego, the brain, is a closed system. It doesn't have any new information coming in. It's only operating on what it knows before. So if it thinks you are this, it will maintain that as a concept. It's always living in the past. It's always living on an old autobiography. Okay. Now the truth is coming in, because this has access to much more. Because
when you say this, you mean the mind.
The mind, because the mind is entering the picture.
Yeah.
And the mind is the boss. This is the self. This is outside the system. And this has access to who and what your needs really are now, because it can read your whole nervous system. It can read the truth of your subconscious and who you are. So it's going to make better choices for you. And how does it do that? It makes you aware of things in your life. Yes, no, maybe, run, towards, away from. Automatically, you will naturally be given the guidance that you've been desperately trying to manage with thinking to this point. So,
and this is how I would say exactly what you said. So when you have access to that material that you haven't been accessing, for understandable reasons, you have a much bigger and more truthful understanding of yourself and how you need to interact and interface with the world. And then your brain and your mind can help you make choices that are in concordance with that. And again, I'm trying to make this very concrete, Sam, so that people who don't understand the theory or don't relate to the theory that you're explaining can understand it. So if any of you out there have a hard time thinking of a higher self, you can think of it as merely
true self.
Your whole, all of you, including that stuff that you learned to hide and the stuff that you think of as you currently. All of that stuff, when everything comes together, and so those parts of your ego that currently are running your life, when they also need access to this material that's been pushed out of the way. When they have access to it, when you have access to all of that together, you can live in a much more authentic way. And that is the key to, again, being resilient in the face of other stressors in your life.
And it will be appropriate for your body. Because, say, for example, a lot of people have coping mechanisms where they think, they'll engage in habits that are not within what is natural to them. It not actually is them. You'll be staying in your lane. sort of psychophysiologically as well. So people are running themselves into the ground. You have people going to the gym every day to try and manage things, but in fact, they're overusing their bodies. It's not in line with what they want to do. Nothing is inherently bad. It's just whether it's right for you and chosen for you by the true self, in accordance with the internal state of your nervous system, your capacity, whether it's actually truly you, or whether it's just the ego trying to use a thing to get a feeling the other side of it.
Correct. Or running from fear.
So you'll start to just do things that are more you. And as we start doing this, people often hugely want to change. They change jobs. So I don't even like that. Why am I doing that? They take up new hobbies. They just find naturally. You don't have to go and make it happen. You say, oh, I really fancy doing that. You know,
all these capacities. That's we've talked about this repressed material, and all of you may be thinking, oh, this means dark stuff like, oh, shame and guilt and fear. That, yes, but also beautiful things like drives, like creativity, that you don't even necessarily know that you have right now, because at some point it wasn't safe to have it, or as a byproduct of something else not being safe, it also got shoved into this box. So
it just wasn't considered valuable or worth, didn't have any currency. So you're wanting to be, say, a dancer, or you're wanting to I don't know, whatever it is, might be in a culture you grew up not valued. So somebody said you had to go and be a hedge fund manager, okay, even though you wanted to do basket weaving. I don't know, whatever it is, doesn't matter. Do whatever you want, but it has to be chosen by, for you, by the true you, not by an ego in service to other people's view. You're going to be living from within rather than without. And that's really key. And the ego and the brain, let's talk about the brain, because the brain is really the computer, which is in service to the ego. It's our servant, but it's become our master at this point. We think we've been operating within this closed loop, thinking it's us. It's not. Step back. We are the ones who control the computer, and we forgot. We forgot. And suddenly the ego has it's a brilliant, loyal servant. But we're the master, the true us, and we're guided by the self when we know how. And people are now in their thinking habits going, but how do I do this? What's she talking about? You don't have to do a thing. It naturally comes online as you start to simply let this unfold bit by bit.
And as you're honest with yourself about who's running your life. I ask people a very simple question. They'll be like, this, and what about this? And how do I know if I need to do this or this in that specific scenario? And I just say, just pause. Who's asking this question? And also, who's the one showing up to make you do somatic tracking or graded exposure, whatever? Who is that? Is that you? Or is that the urgency in you, the important, I must get better because again, these are very understandable responses, Sam. You and I work with people who are suffering tremendously, whether it's stage 1 or stage 4, but you have to be honest about who's in charge. And when you start to realize, oh my gosh, it's that part of me that has this agenda and this perspective that's very narrow. That's what's running my whole life.
Yes, it's this is who you think you're. I don't know how you have the term organ grinder and monkey. It's a thing over here, right? So we think with a flipping organ grinder, and we've been behaving like the monkey all this time. It's like, step back, zoom out. Oh my God, I have been in service to this version of myself.
Yes, correct. Yes, that's exactly right.
Take off the costume, step off the stage, become yourself, and slowly you'll just see what you've been doing. It's fine. The ego, the self-concept, is there to get you to this point. It's normal. There's nothing you've done wrong. Now you are ready to step into yourself. Okay. And this is why you can do it at stage 1. If you're able to, if you have the resources. I had to wait till stage 4, obviously, having a very strong ego and lots of stuff coming up that it didn't like. But it will get your attention in the end, and everybody can recover. Everybody can. So, this is the good news, but it will just come back online. Another thing, just in response to what you're saying about what do I do, this, that, and the other. If there's too much thinking, just go straight into your body. I often say to people, get a cup of tea, sit in a dark room with the lights off, and just ask yourself. It's like the parent that is the version of you now, and it will just go, bing, that's a no. Ooh, that's a yes. And you'll feel it in your body. Gut instinct. This is where the emotions are. So, and shoulds. if I really should, I really should go to that event. Well, that sounds very much like you should not. You know,
Yep.
it's like, I want to go, but I'm nervous. That's different. Okay. That's when you're there to cheerlead for yourself. But if you should go, because you might meet the opprobrium of other people, and it might challenge this crystallized version of who you think you should be, forget it. And that's all you need to do. Just ask your gut. This is what it was there for all along. It was your guidance. And Jung says your emotions are your truth. They will never, ever lie to you.
That's so that's true, but I just have to challenge that particular point a bit, because I have seen people get stuck thinking their secondary emotions are truth, and they are absolutely not. They are part of an ego defense.
That's not what Jung,
right.
Prime.
But I think it's important for us to make this distinction, though, because we're talking to people who may not be able to tell the difference. So so there's a story that comes with feelings often. And if there's a big story with it, chances are it's not it's not a true north kind of emotion.
It's not the real deal, because your primary emotions are raw instinct. They don't come with stories. They're just that. They're they're just that. That's a no, that's a yes, that's a run, that's an eat it, that's a cuddle it, that's whatever. And it's like, as soon as there's a story, it's like, forget it, because it's a mental interpretation.
Right.
So to be clear, always people go, if you don't know the difference between primary emotions and secondary emotions, I actually just did a video on it. If you just Google, not Google, YouTube thingy, you'll find.
I'll put a link to it in the video description.
But I kind of describe it there because it is useful to know the difference. And many people don't. They really don't. And people say, I'm so emotional. It's like, no, you're not. You actually have no contact with the true emotion whatsoever. And it's such a relief, because secondary emotions, things like fear, aka anxiety, feel like utter. The core emotions that the ego is blocking feel so much better. Core emotions actually feel
very true,
righteous. They're just energy, whereas secondary emotions are repulsive. They often feel really grating. And remember, often what the self would choose for you, the ego would not. And you kind of know when you're doing the right thing, because the ego will say, no, we really should go to that party. It's often not what you would agree with, but it will always feel there's a truth to it and a rightness to it when you hear it, when you feel it. So, right. Let's crack on.
So, yes. Are we finished with stage one? Are we moving to stage two?
Well, so stage two, so becoming cyclical and kind of reactive at this stage. This can take place over years. It can take place over decades, right? So this is where we start to get kind of migraines, IBS, pelvic pain often pops in, more back pain, more severe dizziness, because you can have all of these things at any stage, but it's the severity and how often they appear.
Right. It's not symptom based, although and it's not necessarily even severity of symptom based either. To Sam, you and I have talked about that. We've seen stage oneers who had severe dizziness, very severe, but then it was clearly just it was more acute, and it was more actually not even necessarily acute in terms of the duration of the symptoms. I've seen people who had dizziness for 10 years and they were still stage one. It was still a stage one situation.
Yeah. Because actually, absolutely, this is the thing. So don't get too hung up on the symptoms, folks. This is the thing. It just means if one lot of tools aren't working for you, you might just need to try something else. So don't keep banging on, telling yourself you're safe, or it's prediction, whatever.
Or think that you're doing something wrong and there's something particularly broken about you.
It just means you're just need to perhaps just think back and try a different approach. So this is often when people start to get symptoms after stress and conflict as well. So it's really speaking a bit more loudly now. This true self is saying, hang on, no, when you're not disowning yourself anymore. It's trying to guide you again, and it's forcing itself. It's kind of elbowing itself through the door. It's like a bailiff, it's kind of really, you can pretend you're not in and turn the lights off, but ultimately it's going to keep coming back, which it does. The false self at this point, who you think you are, will double down big time. All the old coping mechanisms will be really redeployed, will be stay functional. This is where we often get super spiritual to avoid direct emotional contact. We'll start be saying, this is where we'll be talking about it's perhaps the will of God. We'll be going to affirmations. We'll be doing lots of positivity, lots of cognitive reassurance. Everything happens for a reason. Mustn't grumble. Really, really kind of reinforcing this split, because the ego is doing everything to hold on to this. It does not want you to go there. So it's performatively, you're doing deep stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But you're
or
not.
a lot of fixing. You're at this stage again, because you're in more distress generally. There's a lot of problem solving and fixing. This is also where people start to get stuck in the OCD looping sometimes.
Yeah, because you're going full management mode. Yeah. And the emotions are really beginning to surface now, especially the anger, grief, secondary, the shame, which is kind of somewhere between, and the full-on fear. But the ego identity structure is blocking access still hard and fast. It's not going to let you get to that stuff underneath. And this is where the neuroplastic conditioning really sets in. So symptoms become tied to fear through these amygdala insular loops. So what we've got the sort of secondary fear feeding these thoughts and stuff, and these beliefs about our pain, our experiences start to become a thing for us. And our threat perception will generalize. So even safe signals now, and this is the prediction errors that are kind of are but not. So this is where the errors are, but in fact the alarm is on. It's just in a place we can't see.
Yes.
Now trigger protective responses in the body. So
can I give a metaphor? Because I thought about this. Since this is our third opportunity. So the fire is still on in the kitchen. There's still a fire in the toaster. But now the smoke alarms are going off about the smoke. They're not necessarily so not only are we detecting the fire, but now we're also detecting the smoke. And so it's not exactly an error.
It's going off when you make toast rather than actually being a fire.
Correct. Exactly.
So become quite sensitive, and it's just really rather reactive. It's up to the ante. Yeah, absolutely. And of course, because people still don't realize, you hear some people say your brain is just perceiving danger. It's just made a mistake. But these people never explain why. And these same people,
and that's why we addressed that earlier in this conversation.
They say you're not broken, but then proceed to tell you your brain is broken because it's it's perceiving danger. Your nervous system, in the sense that you're not broken. Your
brain is
really not broken.
It's
just looking.
It's sensitized
the wrong
for
way.
Reason. Yes, and it's sensitized for very good reason. It is absolutely perceiving threat. It's just misattributing the source of that threat.
And actually, even then, the sensitization, you want that, because if I was in a war zone, I'd want to be sensitized. So even then, it's not making a thing. It just is getting a lot of information saying, whoop, 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 danger. So
we're
rest assured, not wrong if we know where to look. And we're saying, got to look to the stress bucket, the shadow. So this is where the prefrontal cortex, this executive function, this ability to override the thing that's the metacognition, I know that I know, loses some of its flexibility. And this is where we see a reduction in the top-down control of threat responses. We can't just kind of override it with calming ourselves with thoughts. It's okay, because it's starting to change. And this is where people start to feel panicked. Why can't I do it? And you get some quite gaslighty people out there saying you're not trying enough. No, there are actual changes happening in the brain for a reason, as we say. So it just needs a different approach. And here we'll find the system oscillating between this sort of sympathetic hyperarousal. You'll be kind of very, very wired a lot of the time in sort of prolonged nervous system activation, and then dorsal withdrawal. So you'll be in anxiety or exhaustion. It sort of will vacillate between the two at this point. And the default mode network, this version of who it thinks we are, this self-referential aspect of who we are, that the brain and ego is in service to, begins starting to form an illness identity. And
you think even at stage 2? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
identity themes, like I just have a sensitive nervous system. I'm a sensitive person. I'm an HSP.
Hmm.
I'm an empath. You know,
Hmm.
highly sensitive people are highly sensitized people. Okay. People look at it, this is again the kind of bypassy thing because it makes people feel, because to be a highly sensitive person, which is a highly sensitized person, feels vulnerable and frightening. So it gives us a bit of agency to say, it sort of gives you a special sort of cachet to say, I'm sensitive, I'm empathetic. Well, no, you're just actually really overwhelmed. And that will change. But it's just a way of feeling a bit stronger and a bit safer about it. So this is where this starts to fit in. We describe ourselves in relation to how our body works. I'm an anxious person, I'm a highly sensitive person. I can't trust my body. So we kind of lose connection really and start defining ourselves by our body and how it's working. And the emotional content is still guarded by the symptoms, the pain. We're starting to see some of these symptoms that really are now surrogate for that which is trying to come into consciousness, for that which consciousness cannot tolerate. So the rage, the guilt, the shame, etc. It's upping the ante. So it's really getting much stronger now. The symptoms are getting much more insistent. And the symptoms, as I said, are proxy for the truth, what's in the bucket, what's in the shadow. It's escalating as the more we avoid the emotional content, the
Yes.
more
Yes.
we resist it. What you resist persists, and what and grow stronger, as Jung says. So at this point, somatic tracking, yeah, absolutely. Starting to learn to deeply allow whatever arises, not just really establish a witness, really start to establish that I am not my symptom, I
It's what
am
I
not
call observer mode for people who've
observer
heard
mode,
me talk about it.
observer
Hmm.
mode, witness mode.
Yep.
Exactly, I'm beyond the experience of me.
Yes.
Because how would I know I'm anxious? People say I'm anxious. No, well, who is that? You wouldn't know if you're not. You're doing it, you're witnessing it, you're
Right.
experiencing it,
Then,
you're observing
yeah.
it, but you are not the thing you observe. And this is the point at which I would always say we need to have graded schedule of exposure and experience at this point to establish some sense of safety in the system. So, doing regular things pretty much every day, every week that provide a framework of relational safety where perhaps we're not feeling it ourselves, doing the emotional awareness technique,
Hmm.
PRT, etc.
Hmm.
This is still relevant here. Um, but start to really pair it with an awareness of the fact now of what we're talking about, that the symptom is an avatar, an ambassador, a surrogate, whatever you want to call it, for the material coming in. Then you will think there's something coming up to be felt. And
It's
you'll
an
realize there's a
indication.
deeper thing going on. Yeah.
Yes. It's an and so in my language, it's an indication your stress bucket is still full. Because I have a lot of people ask me,
Yeah.
Sam, sometimes, I'm doing all this stuff and, why are my symptoms still here? And the answer is very simple. It's because your stress bucket is still full. That's why.
Yeah. 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 And it takes time. I just did a video on it last week. It's a thing of like, when will my symptoms go? Well, when the balance is restored. The thing is, every time you commit to allowing
Hmm.
what's there to be
You're
there,
chipping away at it.
you're
Yep.
chipping away at it. So if you
Yep.
spend really a lot of commitment on it and really do this, it will be quicker.
Yep.
That's all. It's like anything. It's if you want to get to grade 8 piano, it depends how much you practice. Not like me putting on a recording on and sitting in my bedroom reading a teenage magazine when I was a child. I didn't get very far, needless to say, but kept my mother off my back. So, stage 3. This is where the body, we can really see it as a shadow holder. Things are getting denser. Symptoms are now persistent, and multi systems are being affected. So you've got the gut issues, you've got the intermittent headaches, you've got dizziness, you've got the fatigue, and often they're cycling around. Fibros,
Histamine
the histamine
issues.
response,
Yes.
mast cell
Yes. Yes.
activation,
Yes.
panic, anxiety, shut down sort of neuralgia, sensitivities, hyperesthesia, TMJ, whatever, all of it. Whatever, any part of the nervous system can be affected, which is pretty much anything excluding your fingernails and hair will be affected in that respect. So it's the same energy still looking for an outlet effectively, and it's cycling round in different systems. And this is where the false self, who we thought we were, that we've been hanging on to, starts to unravel. We're still desperately trying to resist surrendering to it. If we've been the one that cares for everyone, or the person who, insert here, whatever, we're clinging on to this and seeking control via, this is where we try and stem our control, is we'll start to go into complex healing modalities. We'll sign up to these things that cost thousands of pounds, these difficult protocols, these diets. We'll go full on biohacking. We'll try lots of mental strategies, lots of really complex brain rewiring, all of this stuff, which will fill your day and just stress you even more. Okay. But it's still the last gasp of the ego structure to maintain control, to maintain a control and keep itself intact as the one who's always, absolutely in control of everything, because the walls are crumbling now.
And this is also where I think that illness identity sometimes becomes more deeply entrenched, although we've talked about that for stage 4.
Yeah.
This is also where, if the ego is crumbling, people will pick something new. They'll pick a new way. They'll start building identity around the symptoms themselves.
Yes. Yeah. But then they can be in control of that.
Yes,
so they
correct.
can say, I am somebody who has, I don't know, take a pick.
Fibromyalgia or
the
PPPD, Waldenbargman syndrome.
Yeah. And they'll say, that's me, that's my defining thing, but they'll be very controlled about it, and it'll almost defend that as the new identity.
The activism starts in stage 4, right? The activism starts in stage 4. Yeah.
That's where the spoonyism starts coming in.
Yeah. Sorry. We'll get there. We'll get there. I'm jumping ahead.
And this is when the shadow content is really flooding the body. The gates can no longer be held, and you'll suddenly find yourself full of anger. You'll be breaking down in tears all the time, helplessness. And these are not primary tears. Quite often, this is the secondary thing, because people say, "But I cry all the time. I'm sad." No, that's not the same. This is the performative version of neck up with a story that people can do ad infinitum, but it's never going to switch that thing off, because it's not the same.
And to be fair, I think you'll agree with me on this. I think once you understand the concepts you're talking about, this is different. But especially initially, the symptoms themselves are very frightening to people. And so they themselves, not only are they sort of an expression of the fact that your stress bucket is full, they also put things into the bucket. They add more material. They reinforce some of the concepts and some of the feelings and some of the beliefs that are already in there.
Yes, some of the helplessness, some of the
correct.
Blah, 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 blah. So you can just start to feel, it never works for me, this, and the other, my God, I'm so bad, I do, blah, blah, blah.
Yes.
And all of that, completely understandable. And I'm saying, cry all the time, but make sure you cry in your body. That's the thing, because you can be used that as a way to get to
some of the other deeper stuff.
Yeah, it opens the door so this other real stuff can piggyback on it. So
one more thing here, just that's why I love using how someone's reacting to symptoms as a trailhead, because how you are reacting to symptoms. Look, folks, we understand everyone is going to have a very difficult response to symptoms like yours. They are awful. And so of course you're going to have especially initially, before you understand any of this stuff, a very deeply negative response. But the type of response I see from different people is very telling. If you're the person who jumps directly into victimhood, why does this always happen to me? If you're the kind of person who jumps to try to be the hero and like push through, if you're the kind of person who, again, immediately starts feeling a lot of self-doubt, like, does this mean there's something wrong with me? All of those responses are very telling, because that is something that's being triggered from your stress bucket by the symptoms. The symptoms didn't bring this in out of you. It's pushing on a pain point that's already there. And it's not initially from the symptoms, although the symptoms certainly add more injury, more
No.
pain.
Yeah,
But they are,
it. But this is why I
yes,
want triggers. In my class I had on Wednesday, someone introduced something, said, I hope this doesn't trigger people. It's like, no, we want people to be triggered. We want people to be
yes,
triggered.
yep,
You never deliberately trigger yourself. If something triggers you, the self has decided your nervous system can take it. The ego will hate it, and you'll think, oh my God, I can't take it. You will survive, I promise you. It feels like, but it's completely fine. And exactly that. You can't trigger a gun that's not loaded. And for you, when there's no charge left,
very
you
good.
won't be triggered. But one day that thing triggered you. It's just like, whether it's food, whether it's a type of person, whatever. And so the more you allow yourself to be triggered, don't deliberately trigger yourself, because that's, again, you might flood yourself. But if you just, when you get triggered, surrender into that, it's safe. And as you say, brilliant trailhead. It's like, there you are. Victim.
Yes,
Where does that come from? Does that have a flavor of perhaps something you felt at some point? And this
correct.
is where
Yes.
the pre-verbal trauma will come through. And even like ancestral stuff, grief will come through from stuff you don't even know about. So what the hell is that? A sense of something. You don't have to matter. It doesn't actually matter. And so it's quite archetypal at this point. And in terms of the neuroscience, these brainstem trauma loops start to dominate. The body is revolving round the past with no conscious access to its meaning. It's just like all of this stuff. So the stress bucket, the shadow, is just vomiting up this stuff endlessly all day, putting it into consciousness, and you don't even know what it is. You're crying all the time. You feel like a victim all the time. You feel like no one understands you all the time. You don't feel safe all the time. This is old stuff now coming up to complete. Like any kind of vomiting, it has to go through this threshold, has to go through this door to complete. It's horrible. And I speak from experience. It's the worst of the worst, the worst. But if you can stay with it even for a minute, tick.
Yes.
Job done.
That's a good point. You'd mentioned the schedules, even in stage 2, worth mentioning here.
Yeah.
That when we say schedules, we're not necessarily saying you should spend an entire hour somatic tracking something at first. You may have absolutely no capacity for that. I know, Sam, you've mentioned with some of your clients who, again, are in a very bad state currently, it might even be every hour spending just 10 seconds allowing what's there, and then going back to distracting yourself if you need to. But,
yes, absolutely. Yeah.
But for those of you who I work with, typically, what this might look like, I very recently started saying something like 90-10 or 80-20, where for some of you are still somewhat functional throughout the day, which I know is I'm not saying that you're functional in any way that you want to be functional, but you're doing stuff, you have children to take care of, or you have a job you're still doing. So it's okay not to practice this allowing thing all day, every day, at every single moment. But you can't use avoidance and ignoring as your only strategy.
No. And I mean, what our kind of rule of thumb is, and it would apply for everyone, obviously the schedule as well particularly is of activity. A lot of my clients have CFS and what have you, so it's getting up at the same day, doing this, blah blah, or anything that can provide a sense of safety to the system. It's like, she does this every day, this can't be the reason every alarm is going off. This is not the reason the fire alarm is going off. So that's one thing that's kind of ticked off.
Yes.
It's an investigation list. So that provides safety, particularly if you've got no safety in the body. So it's a very good baseline to have as well, because this is all over the place a lot of time. But in terms of allowing, I would always say, a lot of my clients, they have a 15-minute rule. They have a beeper on their phone. Stop, drop into your body for every 30 seconds, for 30 seconds, every 15 minutes, and just show me what you got. Be with it. Allow it. 30 seconds, move on. Do not engage with it mentally. Move on. Doing whatever is next in your schedule. If next in your schedule is picking up children, or lying on the sofa, or watching television, or staring at a wall, it doesn't matter. But that's enough. And then I would also say as well, fit in. deliberate being with. So doing like one of the guided exercises I have, and we must remember because we got a couple of those to
Yes,
yes.
yes. Special gift to those of you who've made it thus far through the interview, but also to everyone else. We have two meditations that Sam was kind enough to record specifically for dizziness and for tinnitus. So we'll be putting those out on the channel as well. So stay
doing
tuned for
something
those.
like that once a day, or something else, or yoga nidra or something, and also like a specific tracking. So you're being with the sensation. That's great. That's great because you are effectively showing your brain that that you are holding the hand of yourself with yourself. Therefore, it's okay, and it will update. It will come through, vomited into consciousness, and transmuted into something else. Completing. You have to do this thousands of times in these microdoses. So the more you stop and do it, the better. Another work time, I would say it's very well worth doing. If you're having a hideously intrusive thought or a real spike, stop immediately. Pattern interrupt, stop. Show me what you got and allow it, because that's prime time. Something is knocking on the door of consciousness, trying to come in, and your ego defenses are trying to push it back, which means it's a really prime time for getting some stuff through,
So one thing I want to clarify here, because I know a lot of folks with dizziness in particular are dealing with obsessive compulsive, essentially what I call NCD induced OCD, so neural circuit dizziness induced obsessive compulsive disorder. Even those of you who've never had anxiety before, anxiety is a side effect of dizziness in a special way, that it's not a side effect of other symptoms. So that particular component can be really challenging for people, because many of you are trying very desperately to fix. And so you're going to hear what Sam just said and said, okay, well, then I'm going to set a timer on my phone to remind me to do this every 15 minutes. As always, my little tip earlier in this conversation, who's doing the noticing? If it's the one that's obsessing and then you feel a huge relief in your anxiety after you do it,
well, like you said, because I'm controlling it and I'm managing it, so I'm controlling this material. It's from the parent, the true part of you, the computer program is saying, we're doing this because it's a good thing, and that's it. And it's like it's not goal orientated. But that's a very, very good point. And of course, OCD and looping thoughts and all these are fundamental because they are fueled by the emotions we've bypassed. And, we talk about this a lot, because never believe the content of a thought, but always go for its flavor. Again, trailhead. Oh my God, scary, scary, scary. Perhaps I'm going to kill everyone and never get better, whatever it is. Okay. Ignore the content, but realize
the content's not important.
Irrelevant. Yes. It's trying to hook you, but it's trying to get your attention. It's like, hello, there's an emotion down here that's been trying to come to consciousness. You've even ignored the secondary emotion. So it's gone up the ladder and has given you the last blast, which is the scary thought. Immediately think, oops, stop, I missed that. Where's the thought in my body? Or if you can't find that, go, what would happen if it was true? And I tell you, you'll find it fast enough. If you believe the thought of it, and just as a way to trick yourself into showing up the treasure behind it, like what happens if I am going to go on a murderous rampage or do something, because some of these thoughts they have to be scary.
They're very
get
scary.
Your attention, but the content's not matching. You go, ooh, there it is. Churning gut with it. Done. You just ticked off. You just did it. So it's really good. So you're actively, and for the OCD people, you can use this in service to your true self, actually in the way it should be, just to remind yourself to really stick on track here and not waste your time engaging with the thought. Go to the root. Always.
Yeah. So one other question that you can ask that might be helpful for folks, just a slightly different way to do it. I'll say, okay, stop focusing on the actual content. That's what I say that too. And then I'll say, I would like you to notice the intention behind the content. So in other words, again, I often, I'm an internal family systems practitioner. So that's not the only thing I do with folks, but it is a big part of how I think about a lot of things. And for this particular one, it's very useful to see the doubter as a part that's talking about all the stuff. It's saying all this crazy stuff about all the bad things. And then you can say, oh, it's saying all these tough things. why is it so important that I know that? Like it's or even better, I like to always presume that there's some deeply important reason why you need to hear these things,
Yeah,
that this part
yeah,
actually has it, or it has a positive intention, to put it just simply. So if you can go in assuming there is some strategic intention here that this part of me thinks is useful, even if I don't agree with how useful it's being, then often that will unmask what's really
yeah,
going on underneath.
yeah, exactly. And sometimes you can just agree, exactly, you can agree with it. So what are you
Mhm.
doing? You agree with it, and there it is. It's like
Yes, exactly right.
it's
Yeah.
just something that was once very dangerous, and it's trying to protect you in a way. It's trying to alert you to some unconscious material that feels too much, and it's
Yeah.
sort of saying, "Look over here," while it's
Yes.
coming in. It's like that sort of thing. So we are extremely easily triggered in
In stage three.
in stage three. I mean, just
Yes.
like a loop all the time, and it's collapsing suddenly. We've got full on dizziness, full shutdown. We avoid rest or any stillness at this point. This is the last gasp. We're being busy. We're doing stuff. We don't even want to sit down. We don't do anything because it all comes up. This is now trying to flood through. It's like the Aswan Dam has broken and is trying to come through to consciousness. And the only way we can outrun it is just to try and be busy, 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 busy.
Except if you're dizzy. And I think this is why stage three for dizziness is so painful, because sometimes you can't move. Like you want to be busy,
No, but this is the thing,
but
because
your mind stays
I was
busy.
there. So your mind's busy and it's still trying to grasp onto something to
Yep.
just
Yep.
prevent yourself from going in there. And I mean, no, I was there with an eye patch on this sofa, just trying to scroll with one eye, trying to seek things, whatever I could do.
Yes.
Couldn't
Yep.
watch
Yep.
telly, couldn't read anything, but anything to just get myself away from that and not just be still and be with what was trying to come up to actually help me. Because when you can start to see that dizziness, that pain, that fibroma is actually part of you trying to help you to come back, it wants to change. As soon as you start being with it, it will change. The dizziness will just go back into being energy to come back in service to you. And I think it really helps to reframe it in that way. But you have to have this really deep trust to know it's going to unfold as it should, because it's so counterintuitive. Um, so yeah, even sitting down, kind of not doing, just being alone with yourself. I mean, I couldn't even sleep. I couldn't lie down. That's
Yeah.
the other thing with dizziness, is like even lying down, everything's going absolutely crazy. There's no safe place. Um, and you're so resistant to it that you have to surrender, even just as I say, for moments at a time, because just stopping is associated with danger. This becomes the danger because the system is trying to grasp onto everything to explain it, the ego. But of course, none of it's actually dangerous if we step back far enough and see it's just something trying to integrate. Gut issues really are full on, I think, in this stage three. And so people are kind of eating three foods and having massive gastroparesis, constipation, terrible
Yeah.
inflammatory responses to foods,
Lots of weight loss from
reflux, yeah,
dizziness,
oh yeah,
nausea.
yeah, oh, the terrible,
Yeah.
terrible nausea. I mean, so much stuff. Eating can often be appalling.
Yeah.
Just that you lose your appetite, particularly with dizziness. For some people, it goes the other way because they're using food to avoid. But either way, it's just all systems are beginning to be affected, and the default mode network and the PFC sort of go offline. You're just in hijack at this point. The whole thing is just like, you know,
And this
um,
is also when affirmations and telling
uh,
yourself you're safe, it has absolutely no effect on you whatsoever.
well, it's actually gaslighting, and I get very
Yes.
cross about this because you do see people out there saying you're not doing it enough. It doesn't matter.
Right.
Your body doesn't understand. Like I say, it's like talking to my liver, or you can't,
I
or
love
like
that.
saying to myself, you need to be a foot taller. Body does not compute in that way. The
Mhm.
language of the body is how you are with things, is sensations and emotions. And if you sit with something, you indicate safety. You can tell it what the fuck you like. It doesn't speak English, okay, or any other language. it doesn't speak English. It's a body. These are pre-verbal things. It's like saying to a baby, calm down, you're safe. The baby doesn't speak, and the baby's language doesn't understand. And yet somehow there is a language. It's co-regulation, it's touch, it's feel, it's safety. That's the language. And this is what we have to do to ourselves. We are reparenting ourselves in that way. We are babying ourselves, and just being with ourselves in that moment, experiencing such intense stuff, indicates safety, even for moments at a time. And the changes are beginning to be quite dramatic. We're getting lots of spikes. The amygdala is becoming hypervigilant. The fear center of the brain, the emotional, midbrain is becoming bigger, hypervigilant, and this executive function, this ability to override, our PFC is actually shrinking. This is why you can't just think through it. And people think they're going mad because they're trying all day long to do it. No, you can't. At this point, I mean, my amygdala must have been the size of a basketball, quite frankly, even though I'm told I've got a pinhead by my husband. It managed to squeeze in there. And so really everything becomes then distorted by this sort of threat memory and emotional overwhelm. It's just looping round and round and round and round. The default mode sort of collapses at this point, and the self-concept breaks down. This is the beginning of surrender, really, where I don't know who I am anymore. There's everything, all my things that I used to do that are me are gone. I just want my old life back, blah, blah, and you're scrabbling to hold on. And trust me, folks, this is actually quite good. The self-concept is breaking down because it was never you. But it feels like hell because you still think you're that person that's super helpful, super nice, has a perfect house, is always there, is all of that. You're still thinking that, and this will feel like massive loss and depersonalization because you don't know who you are on a conceptual level, and we haven't even discussed real depersonalization in that.
As part of the symptom.
That was one of the delicious things I've experienced, which is just about the worst effing thing going, I have to say. Dissociation, depersonalization, derealization. So we feel completely lost, don't know who we are, and it's amazing because what it is the system trying to just make you live in the present. It's stripping everything away. It's taking away all the crutches, all the life rings, and it's saying, batting them out your hand and say, please, will you just simmer down, stop, and be, because I'm trying to heal you. It's happening naturally. At this point as well, it feels like you're going to die because your autoimmune rhythms are so unstable. You're having triggers just by anything. I mean, your own thoughts are triggering you. Anything is triggering you. Lots of flare-ups, lots of collapse, just lurching from one thing to another. The tiniest thing will put you back in bed or give you a huge episode, because but by this stage everything's 24/7 anyway. It's full on stuff. The emotion is so strongly alive, but we still haven't felt it at this point. We're still not actually feeling it. And this is me. The symptoms are the only way they're trying to express, and they're getting so loud they are deafening. All it is symptoms, 24/7, full on, endlessly. Because
for context, this is when if we want to use the stress bucket metaphor, it's like the stress bucket is so full and the symptoms are so intense now that you can't see anything in the bucket through the thick layer of symptoms that you're having right now. But they're an expression of how full the bucket is at this point.
Yeah. All you can see is symptoms. And let me tell you, this is how absolutely effing brilliant the system is, because it so wants you to look at something. It's like it's photobombing everything with the thing it's wanting you to feel. Like I say to people, it's like you can look at the basket of tiny newborn kittens, and if you are meant to feel anger and fear, you will look at them and that's all you'll feel. And then you'll be like, oh my God, I'm such a bad person, I'm looking at the kitten. It's like, no, it's just like saying, will you feel me, you know, anything, everything is frightening. I think I said one of the most ridiculous, I mean, the ridiculous symptoms I've had,
refrigerator,
like the refrigerator, the special long leg, but that was a particularly amusing
your sewing room.
The sewing, when I felt my own hand was trying to attack me and induced a panic attack. I had an itchy eye, and I went to do that, and I actually jumped out of my skin by my own hand and induced a panic. I'm laughing, but it was, I just thought, that's it. I'm going to die.
I knew you at that time. I mean, we knew each other.
Yeah.
Yes, I know. I was there.
And I couldn't have my husband anywhere near me, even breathing him, anything, even the dog. Just it was globalized terror.
Yeah.
So yeah, going for a wee, the tiles in the bathroom would just be like, I don't have to tell people listening. It was just crazy. So I'd be trying to do it with one eye, or trying to do it with my eyes closed, get to the loo, and then kind of open a bit to do that. Looking in the fridge, hideous. It was like looking in a kaleidoscope. I can remember, and of course, my husband completely didn't understand anything. And that's another thing, people don't expect anyone to understand. We understand. You can't even explain to them. Forget it. I can remember just wanting to, because of course I had so much anger coming up. I just wanted to stab him to death with any kind of implement in that fridge, because he wasn't witnessing me. And he was saying, yeah, just stand and look at the fridge. So I thought, right, I'm going to just go in and look at it. And it was like looking into Mordor. It was like a full scale, scene from the tail end of the Lord of the Rings, with just everything going on. There was so much horrendousness. That just re-traumatized me, because that was me forcing it, because I didn't know what was happening at this point. So I'm just saying that, folks, this is the point at which the self is so desperate for you to empty that stress bucket, empty that shadow material. It's going to make everything be and have the quality of the thing it's wanting you to feel in your body. And every time you feel it, drop, all taken through. So the emotion is so alive, but you don't even know it's an emotion yet. You just all that. Sorry, the dog's digging an imaginary nest in the carpet. And it's the symptoms are the only way it can express. So these are like screamingly loud now. And this is when healing really starts to depend on creating conditions for completion of getting this stuff from the making a way for it to come through. So some nervous system pacing, we have to really go in a sort of steady way with the schedule, titrating the amount of content, so not looking in the fridge for more than 3 seconds at a time, rather than, or just one shelf at a time. I could start off with the bottom shelf, trying to look at the top shelf. Oh my God. It's actually making me feel sick now thinking about it. So creating relational safety. Now, for most of you, I think really it's got to be with the self, because I certainly couldn't find relational safety with anyone unless you live with a saint who's going to totally understand what you need in your moments. It ain't going to happen. So you've got to be the parent to yourself who will just be like, I'm here with you, by being that field of witnessing, that observer, that field of awareness that can say, we can allow for just 30 seconds at a time. And that will signal to the brain what's coming in is actually safe. And it will re-tag it in the amygdala, and it will start to change the program. And really starting to truthfully feel what was unfelt. We don't have to go digging for trauma. We don't have to go digging for emotion. We don't have to dig for anything at all. What we do, and this is the same with you, with doing your IFS and what have you, create a space for the stuff to come to you. You will invite whatever is there to come and show itself. And this is why it's so, so safe. You won't traumatize yourself, re-traumatize yourself, because the self will give you exactly what it knows you can cope with. It will be uncomfortable. It might be confronting, but then we can actually feel what once was too overwhelming. And
so I want to just say here for people, because you and I had a conversation about this, I think yesterday, there's still some midwifery involved. I loved you said that. And I was just
yes, there is midwifery.
So it's not just like So it's not just like you're going to say, okay, so let's just say you're feeling depression. You're not just going to, yes, you
Oh
want to
yeah.
allow the depression. Yes, you do, but you also need so you're not digging like, oh, where did this depression come from? Let me tell a
No,
story about what might have happened. No, we're not doing
no,
that.
no, no.
But we're also not just sitting and staying in the depression
Oh,
because
no, no, no.
because that's like
That's still
gosh,
playing the game.
that's still playing the game. Yes, exactly. So for many of you out there, I saw a comment on my conversation with Helmut the other day that was just so much fun. But the comment said something like, "Yeah, but are you saying allowing isn't enough?" And we're not saying allowing isn't enough. That's still what we're trying to do. But what are you allowing? Are you allowing your ego to continue to do the thing, or are you actually allowing the opportunity for that veil to lift and actually see the things that are underneath it? So,
Well, yeah, absolutely,
uh,
because there's
uh,
allowing, and we're beginners. So you might start with just allowing the depression because
yes, correct.
you're
That's where
you're
that's what you
you know
notice.
you
Yes.
start, and after a while, the more you allow it, the more you allow it. What peeps behind it is the thing that really is behind it. Because depression, of course, is not a core emotion. Depression
It's not. Yes, it's a
is a secondary
defense.
emotion. It's a
Yes.
defense.
Yes.
It's it's
Yes.
it's a loop. It's a loop. It's a loop going on. It's a mental thing. It's
Yes.
been maintained. So after a while, that will reveal its secrets. And like we say, we can midwife it. You can do it in your way with prescribe. You can ask it what it's there for. Will it step aside? What's there? I would say to the ego, can you please get out of the way? I actually want the emotion that's behind it. And you just create the better we become at allowing a space for things, to be the awareness through which this stuff moves, it will just start coming up. And it's so much less unpleasant than the depression because there's a clean, raw truthfulness to it.
Mm-hmm.
But it's you can start with the depression, like you can start with the pain, or you can start with the dizziness, or you can start with the thought, and then just be with that. And often when people do this and they're starting to process things and they're physicalizing it, the core thing will come up. They'll have a wave of something they know is sadness or rage. Someone was saying to me yesterday, they just felt this rage they never felt from ever, just like the rage of Hades come up. And it's like, wow. And they knew it was from childhood. And they were
Right.
at home, but they weren't looking for it. They were just, practicing allowing and but the self had decided you're ready for that big hit. It might be to start with, you're just ready for a bit of acquainting yourself with perhaps what's there with the symptom. So yes, midwifing, and you can kind of nudge
Yes.
it. You can
You
nudge
can
it.
nudge it. That's what I'm getting at to people because you may be asking yourself, okay, if I sit and allow this thing, like is something going to happen? Yes, ultimately something will happen, but uh, with some subtle skills,
Yeah,
um, you can midwife the thing um, through. So, uh, one thing that I have found really helpful um, is allowing can have a particular presence to it. So if you're allowing with a true sense of compassion and curiosity about what's there, you're creating the conditions for more to emerge
exactly.
versus what, again, not that allowing is the wrong term, but allowing is can have a quality to it. And I think sometimes people think of allowing in like this kind of like bracing, grit your teeth,
Oh, that's
just
not
like
allowing.
clinical. That's not
That's not
allowing.
allowing. No
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. There's a rightness to it, a sense of truth to it, a sense of, uh, there's like again, a
It's an active,
truthiness to it.
it's an active neutrality. It is not passive. It is an active being without commenting on it.
Mhm.
And so you consciously have to work on it. This is the thing. And this is what exactly like you said, it's a very good point because people say, I'm allowing. Not that's not what they're not doing it. They're just sort of permitting it to be there in a way that's still not actually when you allow with all six senses. All your perceptual apparatus, that is your five senses in your mind. Truly, you are just this object, this container, this awareness that just goes, I allow whatever arises, and there it is. It takes time. It takes time.
It
And
takes time.
sometimes you have to get it out of its little burrow in some way by perhaps
Yes. And that's where IFS can be very
it's brilliant.
helpful. Yeah, because it kind of you folks have heard me talk about it before. It's not the only way, by the way. There are other experiential techniques that you can use. There are lots of them, like somatic
No, I mean
experiencing,
it's
and
brilliant.
there are a lot of them. But with I'm just speaking to IFS because this is something that I have a lot of experience with. In the sense, allowing might also look like you looking at the depression and allowing it to be there and
No, that's
feeling
acceptance. That's
right,
that's yes,
right.
exactly. Yeah,
Allowing it to be there, accepting that it's there, and also looking at it in the way a parent might look at a child, like you are a part of me with a reason for doing what you're doing, and
yeah,
being like really deeply, like unadulteratedly curious
yeah.
about what is going on there. And that also can really help the material emerge more
Absolutely,
than
because you're
just
signaling safety, which
yes,
is happening at
correct.
a deep somatic level. So the system thinks, right, I'm going to release some of this charge. I'm going to discharge some of the survival energy, which was not allowed to come through, because now they can hold it. And it is that curiosity. I often say to clients, it's like you're imagining you're looking, in those kind of cop shows where someone's being interviewed behind glass. Your symptom
Mm.
might be behind the glass, or you're in the British Museum and there's a fine artifact in a cabinet and you're walking around it and just going, you're really interested. You know you're not it,
Hmm.
but you are interested in it. You can see it, you sense what it is, it's fear, it's pain, it's whatever it is, but you're not it, because this is where the subject object, we've talked about this before,
And that's
is
true.
really important, because a lot of the early modalities of, say, emotional awareness expression technique, and we should have mentioned AEDP as well, because this is obviously brilliant, and we will in a minute. But and like PRT and stuff, and just basic somatic tracking doesn't work so well, because it's
AEDP does,
no,
but
I'm saying I
the
know
other
I'm saying
ones, yeah,
AEDP is good,
yes,
because that's
yes,
exactly about relational safety. It's
yes,
it's self and other, and the other is the
correct.
symptom. But
That's
these
right.
other ones don't. So this is
Yes,
where we have to have the subject and the object, because it creates even more safety. You need that, because we don't
yes.
have the cortical function that we would have in the early days to do that. So it's like, who is the one who's dizzy? Who is the one who's feeling the feeling? And you establish a
Mhm.
separateness to it. And that's where IFS is absolutely brilliant, because you become the observer. It forces you into
And it makes it
self,
relational, and it makes it very
makes it
relational,
relational.
and it not hijacks, but it leverages some of our very human biological capabilities of in terms of how when you turn on those relational programs,
Mm-hmm.
it it activates safety automatically as well.
Well, yeah, it
So
activates the vagus nerve, which everyone is, of course,
yeah,
obsessed, because they haven't actually read Stephen Porges ever. It seems they just listened to someone talking about it,
right.
because he says very much it has to be a felt sense. He was the man who coined neuroception, etc. But it has to be the greatest way to signal safety is through connection to self
Yes.
and community, and that is the ultimate
That
thing to get into a ventral vagal state, to this social engagement state. And exactly as you say, that's why IFS is so brilliant. That's why Diana Foster's work, obviously
mhm.
Jung, everything, and
Yes.
proper meditation is brilliant, because you're creating safety, which is being read at a cellular level, which is being read by the nervous system wordlessly as safety, because you're being with it from a place beyond it. You're holding it, which goes, it's fine. That is true safety. That you can say, that's not this toxic uh, kind of gaslighting yourself. This is the
Right.
real deal, folks. Yeah,
Yeah,
and that's the
exactly.
allowing, and this is why it's deceptively simple, but it's a skill.
Yeah.
It's a skill. And so we get to it whichever way we can. And sometimes you have to stepping stone by doing a bit of acceptance, by kind of sidling up to it for a while. And then, after a while, you can be better at allowing in this broader sense. So whatever works, but it has to be allowed in the body as well. It's not, we can identify what it is, but then we have to viscerally allow it, because that's the language of the body. That's how trauma completes. That's how emotions are read. All whether it's Bessel van der Kolk, whether it's Peter Levine, whether it's Jung, whether it's Schwartz, whoever it is, everybody agrees on this. It has to be a felt sense experience.
And I may just add that felt sense does not necessarily mean you're going to experience it or not necessarily really be focused deeply on the experience in your body. Experiential, it's exactly as you're saying, Sam, people experience felt sense very differently. So someone might say, yes, I really feel it here in my chest. And someone else may just say, I have a knowing. I have a deep knowing that's not like here. It's not a thought. It's just I can't tell you exactly where it is, but it's coming from like.
It's an awareness of
Yes.
something
Yes.
that's appearing in your awareness. Whatever that thing is, it does not matter. But you are indicating to the greater system that you are no longer afraid of this. You are no longer avoiding it. You are no longer rejecting it. You are no longer othering it and pushing it back into the shadow, whereby it goes, right, okay, it's in. Because in terms of how neurocircuits are made, what actions, the ego is the actioning factor. Whether we want more of it or less of it is, if you want less of something, you have to be neutral. If you want more of it, you have an emotion. You can like it a lot or you can hate it, but it's still read by the brain as important. So you have to be neutral. And if you're neutral and allow even for 10 seconds, you hate it, by the way, doesn't matter. But as long as you have that place to be neutral about it, neutral with the fact there's that thing you hate. You don't have to be, I've got to really calm myself down and love this thing. No. It's great. You can actually know it's like looking into the jaws of hell.
Correct.
But if you're able to stay with it and feel it just as information coming into your body, that signals to your brain it's not the reason the alarm's on. And it changes everything. And you have to do it hundreds of times.
And neutrality is also on a spectrum, so you can start being less neutral and work your way up to neutral. That's another thing I want people to know.
Yes, because we're not Buddha. We're not Buddha. Yes. It takes time. Yes. And every time you do it, that's
you get better at it.
That's a win. So, like we say, this is the end of stage 3. This is where we're getting right up to it. This is where we really need trauma informed stuff. Okay. So, and trauma.
And we're going to have a whole separate conversation about this. We're not going to have time to talk about it today.
So somatic work, really feeling in the body, like we're saying, titration, pendulation, moving in it for times, not to overwhelm it, then distracting, engaging and allowing with it, awareness, really creating the observer, the witness, the allower, and being really deepening that practice and going for some emotional completion, really starting to become aware of the emotional content coming up on your body. And it's just that you can feel the charge. IFS, parts work, shadow integration, AEDP, focusing, Eugene Gendlin, that sort of thing. Anything that's led by insight, but then has to end up with the raw experience in the body is what we want to do. And that's absolutely key for this stage. So
coherence therapy, I'll add that to it.
Coherence therapy, which absolutely would fit in that. Again, the same thing, based on Jung, same thing. So shadow work, that's very isn't it? It's very much looking at schema and bringing things, contemplating complexes and bringing them in.
And very much experientially too.
Yeah,
I've been training in it. And this is very much the same thing.
Yeah, brilliant. So stage 4, well, this is where we get the ego actually starts to fuse with the symptoms, where the symptoms truly become our identity properly. And what we think that we are. You're just that is your entire experience. The illness really becomes your core identity. I'll never recover. I'm different to everyone else. There's no hope for me. I'm the exception. And the true emotional self sort of really starts to get fully exiled in many ways. All this rage, grief, the fear, and individuality just lives only in the body. All of it. Your body is just this sort of living shadow. Really, it's all coming up, and that you're just experiencing it, and it's hell. And the full self is sort of totalized at this point. You become if you're still able to. This is where people collapse, become nihilistic. They might become hyper helpful, even if they can't do anything. It's like a last gasp at getting some.
This is the advocacy.
This is the people, the
activists.
And this is when the person dying on their sofa sets up a special charity or an organization for the thing, because that is the only way they can still have an identity, and it's around the very thing they're experiencing. Completely understand. So their whole life is organized around avoiding the truth of the stress bucket, the shadow, the material, kind of everything is about management, everything. And even then there's still an attempt to maintain control, because it's it's managing and controlling, but even if it's about the identity itself. And this is when the symbolic meaning of the symptoms really intensifies, becomes archetypal, really fused with the symptom. We've totally lost really our any sense of self really at this point. So we become, I just can't do anymore. I'm totally broken. And this is where the extreme dizziness, I think, really kicks in big time. And this is when it hammers on the door. And I think you and I are both in accord here. This is certainly my experience. It's like I don't belong in the world. It literally, which actually, if you flip it round, it's really good, because the I that doesn't belong in the world is the false you were. And it's actually welcoming you back. But it's so terrifying and so nihilistic and so cataclysmic at the time. But it is really, really, really trying to help you. And sort of who you think you are, the default mode is just locked into this symptom ego fusion, creating so much mental rigidity and a narrative identification with it. And it's like you're just in this right hemisphere trauma coding sort of domination. It's just all you think about. It's really, really horrendous, and everything is sort of coming up. All the as I said before, more of the pre-verbal stuff, so stuff from childhood, often feeling things in the body, like body memory is coming up. You're remembering things in your body. Often you'll get even more new symptoms, weird things that you had when you were a child or something. And this is the kind of neurocircuit entrenchment sets in. So this is the proper hardwiring stuff. And because we've sort of lost the programmer, so to speak, it's really resistant to new input unless it fits the sick self profile. So this is where you get people who, not the people here, I would imagine, because
they probably aren't watching this. Yeah,
they wouldn't be watching it. This is where people say, no, I'm just this. I am just broken. That's me. I'm just going to make the best of my life lying in this darkened room because and there's nothing anyone can help me. It's all over. And this is how amazing the ego is to protect you from that stuff. You are not broken at all. It literally is the last gasp it can do. And people will fight tooth and nail. You will show them what's happening, and they still will find themselves. They will be resistant to it. They won't have it. They'll actually get very angry, because now this repressed emotion, this repressed material is having to come out, and they will be furious with you for even trying to help them a lot of the time, because the only way they can maintain control is to just, okay, it's, but my management is that I'm just ruined. That
I have a colleague who is experiencing this today.
Mm-hmm.
A former client who basically was, sending medical or surgical information, like, see, I'm under the care of a surgeon, and this describes exactly what I have. And then the first line of the news article is, I'm just trying to help people who are never going to get better, and we're just hopefully going to improve their quality of life. And my colleague was thinking, why did this client send this to me? And I'm like, because you have to be wrong. Because
you have to be wrong, so she can be right. Even if her being right means
yes.
she'll live in a room in a terrible situation,
yes.
but the ego has to be right. And
Yes.
that's the thing. But you're not the ego. That's the good news. And it's its last attempt. It's its last attempt to maintain this stranglehold of control. Literally, as I said before, I was talking about it last night, is that to maintain its self-concept, it will literally kill your own body. It will give you addiction. It will give you eating disorders. It will exercise you to death. It will do whatever. As long as it doesn't let that awful stuff in, which is actually you, it will do that, because it will have to numb you to it. So it's really significant, and it's completely normal. So, I've been there as well. And you will have just massive flare-ups, crashes, that are now really starting to just signal integration. They say, right, okay, we're not waiting around for you anymore. We're just coming. We are just coming into consciousness, whether you like it or not. And you will be forced to have this, to endure this material by such extreme symptoms. So me doing that with it's just like, you will feel the fear. You will. The kittens will kill you. Whatever it is, the tiles are going to destroy you. They are an existential threat. Whatever it is, it's like, you will feel this. You are not going to be her anymore. And it's hideous, but if you understand this is normal, we can work with it, because this is representing the truth coming into consciousness via this sort of insistent intensity. Now it's like a battering ram at the door, and this was certainly the case for me. And I like to think this is why I had to go through it, so that I can at least say to people, been there, done that, because I have the right to talk about it, whereas a lot of these coaches haven't got a bloody clue. And when you're in this state anyway, we're distrustworthy anyway, I need to know, certainly, if I was someone being told to stand in this hell and allow something that feels so horrendous, I would need to know that they'd been there first, not that they just read a book about it in that sense, or like you, had real, tangible understanding deeply of the psychological,
deep experience with clients.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And real understanding, so that you can hold them in it, but you can't just say to the person, just, don't be frightened. It's absurd. It's gaslighting. It's actually cruel. It's cruel. And, we need to trust. And that's one of the last things you've got, is folks like us to say, it's okay. We're holding your hand, and everyone else in this community. And I think it's so great when you can just say to someone, oh yeah, that thing, the thing where you just kind of having a voice saying, kill yourself every day and you're never going to get better. Yeah, that. And people are like, oh my God. Yeah, obviously, of course, it's trying to scare you. It's trying to solve a problem. And so that seems like a valid solution. Just having someone say that immediately goes, oh my God, that's normal. Because actually,
and I don't have to believe it. I don't have to buy into the stuff my brain or my mind. The thoughts are just they're people go through life thinking their thoughts are reliable, and they're just not. And
never believe anything, any thought ever.
But now when your brain is shouting thoughts at you all day long, it can be really hard, especially when you're also dealing with symptoms, to realize this. But yes, your thoughts are not reliable right now.
Believe the flavor of them, because
believe the flavor, but not the content.
Terror. Yes. Believe that and go, oh, what if that was true? Bingo. There it is. Be with that. And I swear to God, I did actually do a thing on intrusive thoughts this week, if anyone, because a certain person on who's got a quite big following and means well, did a video which got it all wrong. And I've got to put something out there, because if you don't understand what this is, you'll be locked into this intrusive thought till the day you die, till the day they close the coffin lid, and it's hell. So if you understand what it is, it's just, again, an emotion trying to ask the flavor of it to be felt. It's so much easier, because it's so distressing, these thoughts, looping thoughts, intrusive thoughts are horrendous, and they'll be thick and fast, but they're trying to scare you to feel the very thing that's trying to help you. The thing we fear, the symptom, is the thing that's actually trying to help us. It's like somebody saying, quick, take this life-saving tablet. And you go, no, not the life-saving tablet.
Oh, not that.
Oh my God,
Yes.
no.
Yeah.
You know,
Can I give
isn't that Monty Python? I'm thinking of a Monty Python thing. Not there is a Monty Python thing that's
I'm thinking of the Spanish Inquisition where they're bringing in the comfy chair.
Yeah,
oh no, not the comfy chair. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
But one thing that I say, and this is a gross oversimplification, but it's still useful. The brain can't fix what the brain can't see. And I know there are lots of terms wrong in this, but the flavor of it is correct. But the
mind can see the flavor. The mind can see the flavor. The brain hasn't got a clue.
Right. So the brain can't fix what the brain can't see, meaning you need to be exposed to the very things that feel so awful in order for things to get better. In order
to retag it.
Yes.
So it's a bit like saying to the child,
to retag it. Exactly.
Got bitten by the dog.
Yeah.
Dog's scared. Look, it's a lovely puppy. And you basically uncouple the meaning and you reframe it. It's classic NLP. It's classical classical conditioning. This is what is the element. You are giving it a new meaning. And every time you change the emotional response, which is the meaning making thing. Of course, it's the amygdala that reads the flavor of things, how you respond to it. Then it presents it to the thinking brain and says, make a meaning out of this. This is fear. Make a meaning out of it. And it's like, well, we're here it is, and we're just giving neutrality. So there is no meaning to be made out of it. And that's how you change it. So you won't get the thoughts anymore. Yes. If you chop them off at the root by feeling them in the body viscerally, but they're absolutely walnut. So
what else about stage 4? Because I know we have to finish here shortly.
So this is when we're nearly there. So everyone's slipped into a coma at this point. So true healing.
Don't be taking this podcast in chunks.
Fine.
Yeah.
And with tea breaks and a
definitely
darkened room. So true healing here really means ego death. And that sounds very frightening. People, it doesn't literally mean your ego dies. It means the mechanism of the ego, which is the sort of director, the manager of consciousness, is now having to upgrade who it thinks you are. You're no longer there. Finally, it's like, thank God, it's got the message. And we start to move into the self. We start to allow the stuff to come through. It really does mean we have to put this down. And it's not a thinking thing. You don't have to think, I've got to think myself into a new person. We're now so battered at this point. We'll kind of in surrender mode. We're waving the white flag and saying, okay, I surrender to the wisdom. We start allowing what's there to be read as just stuff, as energy, as information to come on board. And in time, what happens? It integrates, and the shadow integrates. The stress bucket empties. The nervous system re-regulates. There is an archetypal recognition of these things happening. This is a universal. There's a universal architecture to this. The self starts being retrieved, and the ego mechanism starts to become the self, and we start to become the real who we are, and we return to wholeness through the body. So this is where the best treatment here is more of the same, in a sense, but really starting doing the deep work. So the IFS, the parts work, looking ADP, psychoanalysis, if you're up for that. Actually, and deep allowing, deep awareness of the thing, that you are not the thing. And this will restore the self's leadership. And simply, if you can just really, by now, allow, and have confidence in that it's already happening for you, and that it's okay to feel uncomfortable. It's okay to feel terrible. It's also really important to say, the new thing just doesn't come online. You suddenly think, great, I'm now me. I feel fantastic. No, you feel empty, lost. You have to wait for the new thing to come in, and it appears in glimpses. And you have to hold your nerve, and you have to really, really just be totally sort of meh for a while, quite a long while. But if you keep doing this, it slowly emerges in small glimpses. When you just think, obviously it starts off with feeling slightly less or slightly less awful. Then you might even have 10 seconds of thinking, I kind of feel like me for a second,
Mm-hmm,
and
mm-hmm.
then it'll go again. But this is the sign that it's happening, all happening under the cover. And of course, it's a long game. Everything we do now is paid off later. It's a bit like going into the gym, playing the piano, whatever it is. The practice pays off. So suddenly you find yourself getting a lot more change, seemingly unexpectedly. You know, that's the good news here. Okay. So the point we want to make is there is a framework, that it's understandable that whatever stage you're at, and just do want to talk about dizziness being the last slap round the face to stop, because I think, it has its own particular place in all of this. So we have to discuss it for your folks. But it's understood. And if you are prepared to surrender to the fact there is a pre-existing framework to consciousness, to repression, to these substrates of repressed material that we don't know are there, you are not an exception. You are an individual, you are magnificent and entirely unique. But God, isn't it great to know there are other people, so many other people who've been through this hell. It's like a lifeline. This is what we said. This is what you're online searching for. Where's the person who feels as terrible as I am? And then you for a minute, and then it gives you that moment of relief. Of course, it's only temporary because it's just buying you some time. But it's really, 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 I think, so clearly understood in this way. But the point you and I got together to make here was that we need to spread this word to other people in the field, because people are not understanding this.
Yes, because and on my end, I get a lot of pleas for help, and I don't have the capacity to help
Same here.
more
Same
people
here.
individually. I know. And so I do a lot of referring out, and applying PRT to level 3 or to stage 3 is absurd. It doesn't work. And then people think, oh, well, Yonit's wrong, or I don't have a mind body issue. I actually am physically broken,
Yes.
or my brain's just too
Yes.
stubborn. Maybe they'll agree, okay, it is a neural circuit issue, but I'm just irretrievably broken
Well, yes,
somehow.
and then they feel the gaslighty thing. I'm not doing it
Right.
right because I can't.
Right.
And this is the danger. And it's like, I failed. There's no point. And this
Yeah.
is why we're doing this, because actually there just are not a lot of people who really understand this. So we put, in this conversation, the kind of treatments that will work for you if you're at a later stage. And you can find practitioners to do that. You cannot be applying these basic cognitive reassurance models and very, very basic emotional awareness models at the later stages. It simply won't work. Okay.
Yeah.
Not because they're not good for the early stages, but because they just are they're ineffective. They can't work. They can't work.
Yes. Yes.
It's the wrong map for your territory. And
Exactly.
so you have to know what that is and really start to apply that. And so finding the right practitioners who have an understanding, and it doesn't matter whether it's dizziness, whether it's fibro, migraines, or whatever. If you need somebody who does parts work, that will be okay for whatever your presentation is. Or if you need someone offering somatic experiencing, that won't matter, because the symptom is not the problem here. It's how to get to the deeper parts, to get them out and to be held and to teach you and to be able to create a place where you can feel real safety to start experiencing them and
Yeah.
and letting go. So
Yeah.
over to you, madam.
Yeah. I mean, I think that sums up the 4 stages. I want to reiterate something we said earlier, that you can't tell what stage you're in by the symptoms you have,
No.
how intense they are, how severe they are, how long you've had them. In fact, we encourage you not to try to figure out what stage you are in at all, although there may
Yes,
be
because everyone's
things.
going to say, "What stage am I at?
Which
What
stage am
stage
I?
am I?"
You need,
Yeah.
which one am I? I mean, I could just see the Q&A for next week, just like full of people asking that question. Am I stage 2 or 3?
Yeah.
No, no. I always say these techniques, all the techniques in neural circuit healing, whatever, should be thought of as a conversation, an active conversation. You're not applying a tool to yourself and then waiting for it to work. You're applying the tool to yourself and then listening for how your body responds. You're checking to see, um, not responds in the did the symptoms go away? Okay, it's working.
No,
But
no.
in the do I get a yes? And I'm sorry to make it that vague, but guys, you when you say to
It's
yourself,
a wordless resonance that it
yes,
feels like it's tapped into something.
when you say to yourself, I'm safe, this is just a brain prediction error, and you get a no, then that's not the right tool to be using. So it's not so much about trying to figure out which stage you're in right now. Although
No.
again, we wanted to lay this out for you because we think, as you said, Sam, it can be a huge relief to understand why this other like kind of more surface level stuff isn't working. But it's also to point you in the direction of deeper tools. If you've tried some of the surface level things, you're not broken. It just, those are the wrong tools for where you're at. So just try some of these higher level
Yeah,
tools that we've talked about. You don't need to know
exactly.
what stage you're in. That's not important.
No, exactly. That's right. Am I getting better doing this? If I'm not, it might mean that I need to add something in.
Correct.
That's
Yes,
it.
that's exactly right.
And if you're, say, plugging away at PRT after a year and nothing's changed,
Probably not the right tool. Yeah,
probably the right tool.
correct. Yes.
But for some people, it is the right tool, and it's horses for courses in that respect. So, you know, there are tools there, but you also have to be very honest with yourself and be open to this, and to really start to understand what these conditions are there to. It's you coming back to yourself.
Mm.
And resistance is futile. And don't resist the new thing coming in, because the new thing coming in is actually you. And it will feel very foreign, but after a while, it'll feel much, much better.
Mm.
You know,
Yes.
that's it. And it's a slow process, and it's an uncomfortable process, and it's full of doubt and terror and misery and glimmers of hope, and then all of this stuff before you get there. But it's normal. It's normal. It's normal. It's normal. So just want to reassure you of that even if you haven't managed to fix it yet, there are other modalities out there, all of which are well understood. Okay.
Yes.
However entrenched you are, it's always reversible, because the brain is neuroplastic. The whole body is a process, always changing and fluctuating in relation to how we drive the car, which is how we mark things in our responses to them. Do we react to them with neutrality if we don't want them, or do we react to them in an emotional way if we do want them? So it's that clear in that respect, and we might need help to do that.
Yeah. And one of our hopes here is Sam and I and some other great folk, Helmet and some others, Pippa, um, we're trying to put this framework out there for people to understand, so that clinicians or providers themselves can learn how to work on some of these deeper levels with those of you out there for whom kind of the more standard approach isn't working. And it's not because, again, there's anything wrong with that approach or anything wrong with those tools or anything wrong with you. It's just not recognizing the full picture of what's actually happening. And again, the reason you may ask yourselves, why is it that Sam and I are talking about this specifically? It's because I think, because I work with dizziness, I've had no choice. I had no choice but to go deeply into this stuff, because I could not otherwise help a lot of my clients. So I've had to learn.
Yeah.
But I think people who are used to working with simpler or earlier stage issues just don't necessarily have the tools yet to help people who are going through some of the things you're going through.
And I think a lot of it we've had to sort of work out on the job, so to speak, like you say.
Exactly.
It's not like you go and study this thing and there's a manual, there's book, because, you know, we're drawing from somatic experiencing, IFS, Jung, all of these different things that you and I have had to kind of use on myself, on other people, etc. So the picture's becoming not like you go and study this.
Yeah.
This
and this is evolving. Yeah.
Yeah. And it is an evolving picture. And, you know, people need to be open to that. But this is why people need to know their limits as well as practitioners, and not keep saying that if people are not getting results with them. It's the failure of the individual, particularly with dizziness, I think, because dizziness, as we say, is often just like, it really
That's
is
stopping you.
your
It's going
attention.
to
It's
stop
going to
you.
stop you. And it
Yeah.
did for me.
Yeah.
You know, and I've had severe chronic fatigue syndrome. I recovered from that, but I still hadn't fully dealt with what was in that bucket. And it stopped me. It completely had to, it's like, you are not going to live that life anymore. When you're so at odds with the life you're living, it's forcing you to look again. And it's so interesting because so often people are doing the wrong jobs, they're with the wrong partner, they're with the wrong, just something isn't matching for them. That doesn't
I
mean
would argue
get divorced or you will have to go and do this, that, and the other. But
I would argue a lot of it isn't so much on the outside. I mean, sometimes it is, Sam. I completely agree. It is a sign that something in your life needs to change, but
well,
often it's about how you're doing all those things. How are you
yes.
relating to your
How are you doing?
partner?
Are you
How
being,
are you relating to your
perfect?
job?
Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
100%, 100%. Because I think there should be, obviously the greatest change is external, how you relate to yourself ultimately, because there's disconnection from self. But you will respond differently in the world, and I think as a result, people will do different things. It doesn't mean you won't be with your same partner, but you will start to maintain your boundaries. You'll ask to get your needs met. These sorts of things. You won't be abandoning yourself necessarily in the way you were before. So things might superficially, when you've recovered,
similar,
might have looked the same.
Yeah.
There'll be some changes, but at a deeper level, things will have changed quite dramatically.
Exactly right. Exactly.
And sometimes externally, completely dramatically as well. You might go join the circus. You don't know.
And if you do, please comment below. Well, Sam, this was enlightening and lovely. And I think everyone needs a break, including us. So we're going to stop here. Although we could continue to talk for 4 more hours, and we have all sorts of other. We got through question 1 of 4. So,
well, yeah.
No.
Anyone's interested, we'll do it again at some point. We'll just say, never bring that dreadful woman back. She never shuts up. That's a possibility. She just.
I mean, I don't see that happening. But we really hope that you learned something today, and thank you for being here. Thank you, Sam. And if you have questions for me or for Sam, please drop them below if you're here on YouTube. And if you could also like the video, share it, subscribe to my channel. These things help me reach more people, which is important. And if you're listening to this as a podcast, you can also subscribe to the podcast or follow the podcast, give us a 5-star rating. Again, these things just all help boost the algorithm and make sure that I get in front of people who need this help. So please do those things.
Oh, and follow me on the Mindful Gardener as well.
And follow Sam on the Mindful Gardener. I will link to that below.
Have a look at some of the meditations. A couple I've done for Yonit.
Yes.
But also some other ones I've put on YouTube, which are very good for emotional processing and various things.
Absolutely. The Great Allowing. That's my favorite one. It's awesome. Yeah.
Sorry about the adverts. We've tried very hard, but we're trying to get it on Insight Timer, then it will be advert free. So,
they take some time to approve things, but you'll be able to get them up there.
I think so.
Okay.
Well, thank you.
All right. Take care, everyone. All right. I'm going to stop the recording. Bye.